Siempre que te pregunto que cuándo, cómo y dónde, tú siempre me respondes, quizás, quizás, quizás. Y así pasan los días.
Hi, my name is Nico, and about a year ago I watched In the Mood for Love, a film directed by Wong Kar Wai, and a film that takes place in 1960s Hong Kong. It's been on my watch list for a while now, and after rewatching it again, I remembered why it's one of my favorite films. This is Mr. Koo, and he's pretty drunk. Although he's not on our main character list, he is the reason for why these two characters are stuck in a room together. But this moment isn't where we get to meet them for the first time. In fact, we see them often. It's this moment we get to see them for the first time alone and together. In the Mood for Love follows the lives of two people that move in next to each other, Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chan. They live in a small space where they interact with their neighbors often and find themselves passing each other through tight hallways. And as they begin to interact, they discover that their spouses are cheating on them with each other. They bond over their betrayal and attempt to piece together how the infidelity began by reenacting the events they think led their spouses towards the affair.
不如今晚唔好返屋企啦。
我老公唔會咁樣講㗎。The framing of the film is one of the techniques used to show the intimacy between characters. In almost every scene, there is a frame within a frame. The characters are isolated into an even smaller screen space, which creates the feeling that there is no privacy. The way the camera narrates the story as if we're looking through a frame of our own, that we are just as much of a neighbor as they are to each other. We get to see them struggle with new furniture, obsess over a rice cooker, and we get to watch them cry, discover an affair, and fall in love. We see their lives almost as if we are in our own frame, watching them exist in theirs. But if anything can be said about the film, it's the color. The movie is filled with red and green. It shows that their environment has a sense of coordination. The plates are green, the rooms are red, even the taxi they share is red and green. Mrs. Chan's dress is at times red, at times green, and at times a combination of both. What Wong Kar Wai makes an effort to make sure is that the audience is aware this isn't a film about people getting cheated on and then falling in love. It's a film about the memory of love. He uses a non-linear storyline cutting from one day to the next to show that these are fragmented memories, from the repetition of actions to the color of a scene. There's a sort of dance that Wong Kar Wai creates. And Wong Kar Wai uses the symbol of time to push this narrative forward. There are 5 clock shots in this movie, and the times that they're showing aren't relevant to the characters or to the scene. Wong Kar Wai just cuts to them. And this isn't the only time he does this. Mrs. Chan wears a variety of dresses, and by following a scene, we notice that her attire changes mid-frame. Wong Kar Wai does this to show the discontinuity between their interactions and how the characters are feeling in that moment. This is to illustrate that the film isn't about the passage of time or the finer details of a memory, but rather that nostalgia has nothing to do with what someone is wearing and at what time they wore it, but rather how that memory feels. A point made in the film by Mrs. Chan and Mr. Chow is that they don't want to end up like their partners and cheat on their marriage. However, they also can't help themselves. Their environment is constructed for them to be intimate. They live within frames that force them to be together, whether they're inside or outside. We watch them through a window, framing them again in a tighter, more intimate space. As Wong Kar Wai was writing the idea of In the Mood for Love, he titled the film A Story of Food, which to me gives the idea that this isn't just a movie about cheating or about romance, but rather a movie about food. And we really are at an intimate point when we share a meal. We connect when we're eating. The most engaging scenes revolve around consuming food, eating together, working together, and falling in love together. In most romance movies, we understand the order of events that occur. Love, heartbreak, love again. But in a Wong Kar Wai movie, we have no idea what's going on. And this isn't the oblivious mistake of a director on a budget, but a well-thought-out choreographed series of edits done to express the reality of what love might be for some of us. Empty, non-fulfilling, and a moment we might forget. So what makes this scene so important? Well, for one, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film that we get to revisit twice, and it's the first dinner they have. They talk about the affair their spouses are having, and they hold onto their space, never sharing the same frame. And although visually they look disconnected, the dolly of the camera, panning from right to left, shows that although they are broken inside, they themselves are connected. Following this moment, we no longer know if the conversations they have are reenactments or Mrs. Chan and Mr. Chow talking to each other. In the next dinner scene, we see them sharing the same frame, and something amazing happens. The meal they're having is what the other person's spouse would eat. And so Mrs. Chan, in this scene, is playing as two characters. She's acting as Mr. Chow's wife and as the woman he falls in love with. And even she doesn't know when he's speaking to his wife or to her. From this point on, we don't know if the romantic moments we think they're sharing are real or playing. In the end, however, we are given the context that if what we saw was true, we know that they do love each other. And something that Wong Kar Wai makes clear is that love is much more complicated than what is right and what is wrong. That love is possibly just a feeling that's extremely complex, and as humans we experience that, and navigating it is just as complicated. Having to reenact what you think your spouse is doing with another person might be the closure you need to fall in love again. We understand that these characters, albeit at the focal point of the movie, never get to express who they actually are. We don't even get to see the faces of their spouses. We understand that they don't want to have an affair, and yet we notice, and even they admit, that they're not any better. That while in the beginning of the film, they just wanted to figure out how their spouses ended up cheating, they realized it just creeps up on you. You don't decide to fall in love, you just do. Nothing in this film is by coincidence, and it's important to note that the music of the film acts as a non-diegetic character, creating a rhythm to their love. The song that plays towards the end of the film is Quizas by Nat King Cole, which translates to perhaps, just another way of expressing what love can feel like, the memory of what could have been but never was. One more thing I want to say before we move on is Mrs. Chan is a beautifully written character who, on her own, deserves her own video essay. This scene alone really captures who she is throughout the film. A woman out of place. She stands with a high collar as everything around her moves chaotically, and she waits. Extremely polite, kind, and put together. Her form-fitted dresses and well-done makeup distract from the inner torment of her thoughts and her loneliness. She finds a way to hold herself together until she can't. The film's original Chinese title translates to the Age of Blossoms, or the Flowery Years, a Chinese metaphor for the fleeting time of youth, beauty, and love. And I think that's one of the reasons for why this film is so relatable. The words "I love you" don't have to be said for someone to see that there is love. The feeling that a memory will give you is enough to know that there was love, that the moments shared were born, grew, and moved on, that being in the mood for love can be a story of quiet agony.